Hello, Hub Nation. Good evening. Welcome to another episode of 5 Elements of Success Player Development Series. I'm Roger Nick, your host. We're excited about this show going into the off-season and starting our off-season training. So hopefully you stay tuned. We're really looking forward to sharing with you some of the things that we do with all of our players here, and hopefully you get some work done there at home as well. As always, we want to make sure that we keep it interactive. Send in your questions, comments, concerns, 5elements@thegolfperformancecenter.com. Also YouTube chat, so we want to hear from you so we can help you get better in golf and hopefully in life as well. So stay tuned for that. This week's pop quiz: what does the S in SMART goals stand for? Let me repeat that. What does the S in SMART goals stand for? Tune in later in the show. We'll be giving away that beautiful Under Armour full zip jacket, women's or men. So, please send in your answers and we can pull your name out of the hat there. So, again, pop quiz. Before we get into this week's show, let's talk about last week's show, Tyler.
Yeah,
and welcome back, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. I missed you guys last week. Yeah. You guys did great. Again, last week's topic was the National Letter of Intent. How that's a goal for so many of you junior golfers out there aspiring to play college golf, to have that day to commit to the school of your choice. We had special guests, Rick Dowling, Ted Swartwood, former Division I college coach, Danny Randolph, as well as recently signed student athlete, Liam Gill, who just signed his national letter of intent with Seattle University. Yeah. So, and then lastly, we covered the Junior Golf Hub College Golf Checklist, how important it is to refer to that throughout your journey of junior golf to make sure you're doing the right things at the right times on your road to that NLI.
Yeah, and it's very interesting, Tyler, we're talking about that, but the different journeys, and obviously Liam shared his with us as a student athlete, and the coach's perspective as well. So It's quite a bit different, and I know you out there as family and also junior athletes probably have your perspectives. So again, if you have a story, send it in, let us know. We'd like to post that for you and get that word out there that maybe your journey is coming to that next phase, if you will, to college. So again, as we're getting started this week, Tyler just teed it up for me on the goal setting. This week, off-season development, starting your plan or creating your plan, and we start with that. We start with goal setting, and I'm here with Dennis Hillman, the Director of Coaching here at the Golf Performance Center. And Dennis, I think that's so important, and as Tyler just said, signing that letter of intent to go to play college golf, that's a big part of the equation for our players coming into here. So where do you get started with that? And I know we're in the off-season training now.
Yeah, so it's really a great time of year, an exciting time of year. It's a great time to really gather as much information as you possibly can about your performance from this year. So, you can look at stats, ideally a self-assessment, feedback from your coaches, and identify some strengths and weaknesses. What do you really need to work on? And from that, you can create some goals and a plan, to improve in the off-season, just in the short term. And so we work with Dr. Brandt here in the Academy just on that process right now.
Well, let's welcome in Dr. Brandt. Dr. Brandt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Dennis was saying, we're just talking about setting goals and how we get started for this, the winter season or development, off-season development. Where do you start on the mental side? Because that is a skill in itself.
Yes.
And it's like every other skill. You have to set goals and try to obtain those goals also on the mental development.
Yeah, for sure. Well, right, the mental development, goal setting itself is a skill.
Yeah.
Right, really important to do that, and to pick up on something that Dennis said too. Right, really important. You can't set a goal unless you know where to begin. Right, so we spend a lot of time. We're actually doing it all morning and this week with the Academy kids, really trying to get a sense of where to start. Based on their performance over the summer, based on kind of our physical, mental, psychological, technical assessments that we do throughout the course of the year. We have really kind of clear, hard data points that we can use to then guide goal setting. But unless you really can do a good job of assessing where you're at, you can't set up a way to know where to go. So really need to start with an accurate assessment of the things that you need to work on. Really basically strength and weakness analysis. And then based on that, you can set up goals.
Yeah, that's terrific. And Dennis, talking about that, I know you guys here at the Golf Performance Center go through this process extensively, but also multiple times during the year just to make sure that they're on track maybe with these goals. So tell us, where do you start, with your players, and what are you, talking to them about on how to set those goals relative to their end goal and then their maybe intermediate goals?
Yeah, where we like to start as far as the goals is a reverse engineer. So really, what's your inspiration? If you look out 10 years, what's your vision for where you want to be in 10 years. Is it the PGA Tour, the LPGA Tour, or maybe just playing high-level amateur golf? Whatever it is, it's your inspiration. So from that, you can work backwards into 5 years, into 1 year, into short-term goals for the off-season, and really inform what you want to do right now to get ready for 2021. Other than that, doing the assessments, so 4 times a year we do the full PDI here, which gives you more information about strengths and weaknesses on the physical side and on the golf side. So that, in addition to stats from your playing performance, really informs you about where you're strong and where you're weak.
Yeah, and that goes back to, again, where the mental skills come into play in what you do. And so Dr. Brandt, tell us, where do you start with your athletes when you're sitting down with them? What do you start with?
From a mental perspective, right, really important. Obviously, you have to work with each individual is different. But one of the things that we do with the kids, and again, I'll reflect on what we did this morning, it was really cool. What we do, and I welcome everybody at home to do this too, specifically around the mental game, is make a list. Take out a piece of paper and literally make a list of your strengths and weaknesses as from a mental perspective. What worked, what didn't work? Where are the places that you get stuck? Where are the places that you're really good at from a mental perspective? Then we actually ask the kids, and this is a challenging part, right, to interview other people in the room. Interview for you at home, interview your caddy, talk to your parent, talk to friends that you play with, talk to your weekly golf buddies, and ask them, what are your strengths and weaknesses as a player? What are the things that they notice, right? And kind of good questions to ask, real simple. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Another good question would be, after playing with me, what do you think people would say? Right? How do I act on the golf course? What are my behaviors? What are the ways that I think? And another good one too, what advice would you give me from a mental perspective? Before you really dive into the specific areas of the mental game to work on, I think it's really important to identify what are the specific strengths, right? We want to keep those, but what are the weaknesses too from a psychological perspective? Yeah. We gather that information first, and then we design. We were talking about it earlier too. We design using the acronym SMART goals. We design the goals around those weaknesses, but realistic, relevant, accurate data.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and we see it all the time. We were out there on the golf course with these junior players or players in general, and how little they are aware of kind of what they're doing and what's being, kind of put off, in their emotions, if you will. They'll say, "Oh, I'm so calm and collected," but the reality is, we're seeing something completely different.
Right. So I'm glad you brought that up. We had this one kid this morning who we asked him what he thought his mental strength was, and he said, "I'm really good on the golf course. I'm mentally tough." And it was playful. We all handled it well, but a lot of the players in the room actually started laughing because their experience of him was quite different. So sometimes your experience of yourself is not actually what happens in the real world or what other people experience of you, and sometimes that information is even more accurate. So anytime we're setting a goal, really, really important to start with accurate information.
Yeah, and Dennis, I know over the next few weeks, we're going to be getting into, what the golf program looks like, and how you set, really weekly plans for everyone. And it's really, this is kind of structured from that, right? I mean, that's what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you set your goals, and you have, ideally, specific goals, as Josh talks about. But it's really your plan and your action steps or your habits that you create that are going to make the difference. So we do have a process here of building fundamentals from the ground up, as we've talked about. Ground forces, posture, rotation, trying to improve those fundamentals and trying to acquire skills and get stronger in the gym. So it really starts with goal setting.
Yeah. In kind of going along that lines, we're talking about the 5 elements of success, and obviously the physical and mental side of things are 2 of the 5 components. Yeah. Which is why we have Dr. Brandt on the show today. When you're sitting down with the players and you're going through their strengths and weaknesses, and you realize that maybe the mental side is a weakness, and maybe rightfully so, as there are young players just developing and not really cognitively all there yet. I think that's something that you have to deal with as well, and kind of help them understand it's not just mental and it's not just physical, but there's a combination of all of it.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that's what the 5 elements of success is all about. It's really all those things influence how you play, so you have to address all of them on a consistent basis if you're going to make progress. mental skills are important, but as Dr. Brand talked about, those are skills that you develop. It's not, hey, there's something mentally wrong with me. It's just there's some skills I need to learn. So, it's all relevant. All 5 elements of success, you can improve in all those areas. And we talk about marginal gains, compounding results. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and part of the SMART goals, and it's one of the things that I kind of look at too, is that we can set all the goals we want, but there's sometimes that resistance to change, and that resistance, you talk about resistance, and is that part of understanding if I'm setting my goals, is that part of it as well?
Yeah, for sure, right? So, I mean, goal setting is challenging in itself, right? And really just to quickly run through what that acronym stands for, right? When we talk about SMART goals, we're talking about setting really specific goals, right? So if you say you want to get better at putting, right, just saying you want to get better at putting is not a better way to get putting. What is it specifically about your putting that you're struggling with? And that's where that strength and weaknesses analysis is really important. Getting accurate data to work on. Maybe it's your alignment. Maybe it's you're feeling too much pressure. Maybe it's your tempo. So really getting specific on the things that you need to work on. Is it measurable? Is the goal that you're interested in achieving, is it something that you can actually measure? Is it attainable? Is it something that is something that you can attain, right? Saying that you want to qualify for the Masters as an amateur in 1 year, that's probably not attainable, right? Relevant. Is it relevant to your development? I think it's one of the best things that GPC does, right? We really give you accurate, relevant information. We're not going to give you things to work on that aren't relevant to your development as a player, right? So, really cool example. I did my PDI a couple weeks ago, and Tyler, after the PDI, I'm really excited. I got all this data, and here I am ready to get to work, and I'm thinking, okay, I need to work on my flexibility. And I said, Tyler, what do I need to work on? And he said, you need to work on strengthening your right hip. And it was just the coolest experience because, given his expertise, it was really clear that there was something foundational that I needed to work on that I wasn't aware of. So make sure these things are relevant, right? Because I would never have thought strengthening my right hip was relevant to my development as a player. But trusting a coach, trusting an expert is a good way to do that. And then the T, of course, is time-bound. Right? It's got to be something where you give yourself a limited amount of time so that you can reevaluate and replan if you need to. So really important. That's what that acronym is for, right? Really important, even from a mental perspective. If you can give yourself a really clear plan, it's something that is much easier to achieve than just saying, I just want to get better at putting, right? It sets a clear plan. All right, so resistance, right? I'm a big believer in resistance, right? There's that great book, The Obstacle is the Way, that Rory McIlroy always talks about. In my years of practice as a clinical psychologist, I can tell you, it's not the intention, right? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. It's the resistance, right, to development. And I think whenever you're setting a goal, it's really important to take some time to think about all the things that are going to get in the way of your ability to actually achieve that goal. So when you are setting goals, when we do that here, we ask our kids to anticipate what might get in the way of you achieving that goal and have them work on that too, because if they can come up with a plan for the resistance, it makes the execution of the plan to achieve the goal that much easier.
Yeah, I love that, and I love that book, by the way. I think that's one of the best out there. And it's something we do a lot, and even in our interview process, we talk about setting those goals, and a lot of times it's very general. I want to be the best player in the world, or I want to play college golf, or I just want to win my club championship. But underneath that is what might be in the way. Is it what's going to be your limiting factors? And it's so interesting to see that a lot of our kids don't even know or don't even think about their development in itself could be that obstacle.
That's right.
It's physical development, mental development, and obviously we're going to bring Tyler back on and talk about the physical side, but they're going to be going through so much change, from that standpoint as well, that could be a limiting factor, and they're not realizing that.
And I'm going to tell you one of the things that's so humbling, about development in general, and again, why you need good coaching, why you need good feedback, is because what you think you need to work on is not always what you actually need to work on.
Yeah, that's why I love that sign. What we talk about all the time is what you can measure can be improved. And if you're not measuring it, you really aren't really looking at the right things.
That's a huge part of the process. I think not a lot of people want to go through that process of getting that feedback and being under the microscope and really finding out that they have a weakness they didn't know about, right? I think a lot of people are really trying to avoid that at all costs, and it's a lot easier to sort of pretend or just go out with the expectations, and and make excuses why you came up short. But that's where it all starts.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of too why people don't reach their goals, is they don't really think it through to what that resistance might be and where they are, and not getting those measurable, attributes. And we see that with our juniors, we see that with our adults as well, because they don't really look at the physical, or think they look at the physical side of things as we talk about the physical limitations. And Tyler, welcome back. And that's what we were just talking about, right? So from the developmental planning side, the physical side of things are so important, obviously going into the off season, and we talk about this all the time in the continuum and periodization. So it's really important to know what you're working on when you go into the gym. So as Dr. Brandt was just talking about, is setting those goals with the intention of making a change or making a difference. And so what do you guys, so where do you start?
Well, I guess let's recap. Where did we start from our academy year to now, and then where are we heading in the next few months? I think for all of you at home, you could start the same way. We start with the PDI self-assessment for our juniors, but then here at the academy, we also go through the full PDI assessment. The physical component of the full PDI assessment includes a functional movement screen, as well as physical proficiencies, which include strength and power tests, really more in an athletic environment. They look at how we transfer energy through the body. Well, what's our relative strength, relative to yourself? Can you control your body weight through push-ups, pull-ups, planks, and so forth? And a lot of that is available to you guys, again, through the Junior Golf Hub, through the self-assessment and the coach-guided assessments. And keep an eye out, obviously, for any events that we have here to do the full PDI if you're interested. But we start with the assessment, first and foremost, to determine our baseline. Where should we start? How, we talk about those SMART goals. What is attainable? How do we develop this system and the plan to go from doing 10 push-ups to 25 push-ups, 25 push-ups to 35 push-ups? What does that look like? And so in the past few months, we've been in what we refer to as phase 1 and phase 2, our movement prep phases here in our periodization plan. And basically, the focus of those phases is really on technique, fundamental movements, and mastering those in preparation for our winter and off-season, maximal strength and power phases, which we're excited to get into. I, reluctantly call phase 1 and phase 2 a little boring. You know what I mean? The quality of the content in those phases is I would argue, more important, or as important or more important than what we're doing in the winter, because that's what's going to keep you healthy. Yeah,
well, Tyler, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think it's more important to get that quality of movement down first. 100%. And obviously, we discuss and talk about function. Adding function to dysfunction is not really adding.
Recipe for disaster and injury. It's easy, and honestly, we've all been there where we want to go to the exercises that's the coolest looking, or I want to lift as much weight as I can, or I want to do this crazy, how high can I jump on this box? And there's a time for that, and there's a place for that, and I love the vigor and the energy that the kids bring to the gym, but if they're not doing it at the right times, they're setting themselves up to get hurt. And I think that's why we've spent as much time as we have in these early phases to prepare the body for what we're getting ready to put it through, some of the fun stuff.
Yeah, and actually it's very interesting you talk about that, because one of the things we did growing up was some of those things, those fun things, but what we're not seeing out there, and you're not seeing out there probably, is doing some of those just play. Just naturally, discovering, self-discovery and playing around and doing other sports. And I think that's something that is missing. So, next time you're outside, just do something. Yeah. Jump up and down. Try to touch the branch above your head. So do something like that. It may end up, having you ask another question of yourself of what I should be doing.
Love it.
So I think that's really important. Dennis, talking about from the coach or mechanical development side, obviously the physical component of this is so essential, so that you guys on the coaching side can read into, hey, what's available to them to gain.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on our side there are certain fundamentals we want to see develop, more efficiency in the golf swing, a more stable base, better rotation. But we know that the physical side is going to dictate that. Function dictates form. And so really we spend a lot of time trying to convince our athletes, or really get them to understand that the work they do in the gym is going to change the way they swing or the way they move. Even maybe not with no effort, but with less effort through golf drills. So, just continuing to work consistently. We always promote the consistency is the whole key.
Absolutely.
We'll ask our junior athletes, how often do you do your stretches or corrective exercises? And they might say once or twice a week. I told a junior the other day, you may as well not do them at all. So
yeah.
I said, if you're not going to do them every day, you're not going to make progress. So, that's kind of the key, I think.
I will say we transition our mindset here from a coaching staff, I'm very appreciative of this as well as a strength coach and director of performance, that the golf coaches understand the balance of time spent in the gym in the winter is gonna vary. It's a great opportunity to spend more time in the gym, to build that muscle, to become powerful and explosive, all while still working on your golf game through block practice, which we'll get into a little bit more shortly. But having the golf coach support the efforts that are required in the gym to make a change physically, and the amount of time and effort that it actually takes to see a difference, it certainly helps our cause, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, it is actually one of the reasons why we created the Golf Performance Center in the Northeast, because it gives us a natural time of the year to take a break from competitive golf and, the mental stress, the physical stress that goes through that as well, and obviously focus on the academic side of things and focus on these corrective things and giving the body some rest. And I think that's really so important.
I think that's really underappreciated when you look at it. You look at some athletes, as they get into professional ranks and overuse injuries that start to show up. You can tell that they just played golf year-round from such a young age that the body starts to break down in certain areas.
We're spending that time early on building a solid athletic foundation, which again we'll talk about probably in the next few weeks. To prepare the body for the long term. That's really what it's all about.
Yeah, well, setting this all up, so we're going to be continuing this series of, kind of the development phases as we go through the rest of the winter. And so hopefully you guys join along with us and take a ride on this journey as well. And hopefully you call in, get a coach-guided assessment, or maybe even do a self-assessment to kind of know where you are with your strength and weaknesses so that we can help you as well. But Tyler, on the physical side, what would be maybe a takeaway from today's episode that, they can go and kind of try?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is honestly, you're setting your goals physically by doing your assessment and then creating a plan to achieve them. Our next major testing period is coming up in the first or second week of December for our juniors here. And this morning they all got a nice little reminder to revisit those goals and say, hey, if you're not sensing that you're making progress towards them, it's a little bit of a crunch time for them. You might not necessarily be on that same timeline, but set goals based on your physical assessments, your baseline. There's no good, bad number at this point. Let's find out where you are and then build on that progressively. Yeah,
that's it. You got to know where you are to get where you want to go. Dennis, on the golf side of things, where do we take it from here?
Yeah, I think, reiterate, obviously the goal setting is the whole key. So, set strong goals using the SMART process, understanding resistance. Awesome way to do it. Fundamentally on the golf side, we're working on fundamentals. I'm actually going through a newsletter, our 6 primary fundamentals over these next 6 weeks. So, actually started last week with stance width. So first thing to do, check out your stance width and understand where that should be. That's a great way to just start laying the foundation.
Where it should be and why.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's great. So that's some great information, great takeaways, and Dr. Brandt had some good takeaways as well. So, working on those SMART goals, and we're going to be discussing that. Dr. Brandt will be on the show in 3 weeks. We'll be back in 2 weeks, so stay tuned for that as well. Andrew, do we have any questions coming in?
We do have a couple questions. The first is, how quickly should I see progress towards my goals?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it is a great question. There's no magic answer. I think the key is that you've set a goal properly and you have ways of measuring it along the way. I think there should be some correlation between the effort that you put in as far as how, the quality of the practice and the quantity of it and the feedback that you're using and the progress that you make. But if you feel like it's going slower than it should, I would say, take a look at some of the resistance or maybe some of the things that maybe you don't understand that are making it difficult.
Or maybe is it realistic? Was it a relevant and a realistic goal?
Yeah.
So.
Our next question is, I set some goals for the 2020 season and I didn't accomplish some. Should I keep the same goals for the next year?
Great question.
Yeah, it is a great question. I think you want to just start the whole process over. I think you may find that you'll end up with some of the same goals or similar, or it could be completely different. So I think the goal is to just start the whole process over based on the information that you have now a year later.
Right? Yeah, that's good.
that's all the questions we have for today.
All right, so it looks like we have a pop quiz winner.
We do have a pop quiz winner, and it's Casey Donnelly.
Casey Donnelly. All right, Casey, well done. So you get to win that nice Under Armour full zip pullover. So thanks for tuning in and sending in your answers there. So thanks so much for that.
The answer for this week's quiz was specific.
Specific. All right, good. So those SMART goals. That's good. Thanks so much. Again, thanks, Casey. Again, we don't have a show next week. We got next week is off, Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving for everyone out there. Hope you have a great and safe holiday, and we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks, and we'll be talking again more off-season equipment assessment, and as we'll continue with the golf development and also physical development, and like I said, in 3 weeks we'll see Dr. Brandt back here again. And then just a reminder, 5 things you must do to get signed next year. We have an NLI on the November 23rd, so hopefully you guys tune in for that at 7 p.m. So we look forward to seeing you there, live webinar. And as always, we want to say thank you to our sponsors, the Junior Golf Hub. Make sure you download that app, get those coaches in your pocket, get those programs there. You know, search those schools, find the best fit for you. I think it's going to help you be your best out there as well. Ethan Allen Preparatory, again, achieving your greatness in the classroom, on the golf course, and in life. So thank you to those sponsors and being with us. So make sure you get after it and enjoy your journey. Have a great Thanksgiving.